That's the nature of compromise.
We got to make some tough compromises.
Compromises that we make.
I think you're going to have to come to a compromise.
This is a compromise.
Finding common ground, I think, makes more sense.
Yes, but can you find the magic word there?
No, it's a guess from me, but maybe we can figure this out by the end of the show. Rick and I, though, very good at the compromise. Top line starts right now.
Hello and welcome to ABC News Top Line. I'm Rick Klein.
And I'm Amy Walter.
Every day at noon Eastern, we're right here bringing you the latest in politics. Twitter.com/Rick Klein, Twitter.com/Amy E. Walter. This makes me think we should have a word of the day, a la Sesame Street.
I think we should start with that. Certainly a letter of the day.
Letter of the day.
And the letter of the day today would start with T, correct? Taxes. My first top line on the move. Yes, it does look like this tax cut bill is making its way to the president's desk. The Senate expected to pass something. The next hurdle, of course, is the House, where Chris Van Hollen saying that he is expecting not to put up procedural blockades.
Right.
But we have some very interesting breaking news, actually, about the tax bill. The ABC Washington Post poll out today showing 69% support for the tax bill, just 29% saying they oppose it.
And this is after people are told some of the details of it. And interestingly, the party breakdown here, Republicans are more supportive of it. 75% of Republicans in the poll say they support this deal. 68% of Democrats. So that's not too shabby either.
No, that's not too shabby. Here's a big important thing to remember, though, about this. 36%, though, saying that they don't think it's going to do anything to help the economy.
Well, there you go. A lot of pessimism
go.
all around. Next up today, is it steel curtains? Michael Steele, the embattled chairman of the Republican National Committee, will break his silence about his political future and whether he intends to run for another term. This evening, wild speculation all around the blogospheres and a lot of Republican activists as well that Michael Steele won't be running, although there's conflicting reports on that question. And, of course, this is Michael Steele, so no one will know until he opens his mouth.
That's right. Or maybe he uses it just as an opportunity to continue to drag this thing out. Look, the bottom line is this election's coming up in a month, so we have to have an answer here from him. And talking to Republican folks, activists, and strategists, they say, we don't really care who the next person is. It just can't be Michael Steele.
Fair enough.
Sorry, yes, it is me. Sorry, healthy challenge. All right, the highest profile challenge potentially to the Obama health care law, which Republicans, of course, deride as Obamacare, is slated to come out today. It's going to challenge, it's a federal district court in Virginia. The challenge is to the individual mandate. If this is struck down, the Obama administration saying that they'll appeal immediately. But certainly for a lot of Republicans, especially those guys who say we're going to make repeal of Obamacare our #1 issue in the new Congress, this can give them a lot of incentive.
That's right. There's been something like 14 court rulings so far, but this is the biggest so far, particularly on the individual mandate, the constitutionality. This issue is likely to go to the Supreme Court. The White House, I think, is already prepared for that possibility and that eventuality based on where this judge has come down in the past.
Like that so much? We wonder what Mitt Romney would have to say about that.
Yeah, exactly. And finally today, no way, no how. That is what Mayor Michael Bloomberg of New York City said about the prospect of a presidential campaign in 2012. But, of course, that isn't quieting any of the speculation still. He's still doing a lot of things that make him look like a candidate, including his involvement today in a brand new group that we're going to talk about in a moment called No Labels, the idea of moving beyond party lines. No one seems better suited to do just that than Michael Bloomberg.
That's right. I do love that every day he has to come out sort of with a new comment about how he's not running, but then continues to have press conferences and give speeches that make it look as if he's interested in national ambitions.
With just enough of the twinkle in the eye when he answers all of these things. As we mentioned, the new venture, No Labels, is our topic today. We're joined by former Congressman Tom Davis, Republican of Virginia. But, of course, he doesn't want to focus on the Republican today because we're not talking labels. Mr. Davis, thank you for being on. I want to ask you, we've seen a lot of efforts over the last couple of years about trying to bridge partisan divides, but it seems like partisanship has only gotten worse. Why do you feel like the climate is right to see some movement in the other direction again?
I don't know if it is right or not, frankly, with campaign finance moving all the money out to the wings and keeping it away from the parties, with the media now moving right and left and the internet, the parties ideologically sorted. I'm not sure it's right, but what's happened is a lot of people feel very cross-pressured. They like the Republicans on some things, Democrats on others, and the fastest growing registration piece in America is independence or decline to states. And there are just a lot of people in the center at this point that have not been organized in any way. And I think the No Labels is an attempt to start getting some information out and organize a center. I don't know that everybody agrees on everything in No Labels. It's not a political parties, but it's kind of a movement saying, let's get beyond the labels and solve our problems.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. I mean, obviously, you as in Congress were seen as a moderate, somebody who was able to talk to independent voters. There aren't many of you left. Is that the problem here, that we're just not electing as many moderates on either side of the aisle?
Well, Democratic moderates got wiped out this November,
That's right.
Yeah.
and a lot of Republican moderates got knocked out in 2006 and 2008. And if you look outside of New York, New England hasn't come back for the Republicans. The West Coast hasn't come back for the Republicans. We are seeing a pretty red and blue nation, and some reassertion of basically a huge cultural political divide. Having said that, we have on Main Street Republican Partnership 45, 50 members of the House and Senate that tend to be a little more centrist. There's a huge group there of swing voters in the middle that don't identify with either party, and I think whoever controls them are going to control the next election.
Mr. Davis, you talk about Republicans being knocked out, Democrats being knocked out. In all cases, it's the voters, of course, who are doing the knocking out. Right. Are voters giving any incentive to politicians these days to moving toward the center, to working bipartisan solutions? People say they want to see both parties work together, but they don't seem to vote that way.
Well, no, because the nomination process, as you've had moderates from both parties leave their parties, basically you've got the Democrats in a pretty hard blue ball and the Republicans in a pretty hard red ball. So even people like Robert Bennett didn't even get through the nomination process. Lisa Murkowski, Mike Castle, we can go through the whole list. Charlie Crist and Specter were non-starters in their party primaries. So it has gotten so that each party has now gotten, in the nomination process, moved right and left. And that, of course, you have a huge group in the middle that has swung back and forth between the elections and basically looking for a place to go.
Congressman Davis, you obviously worked with soon-to-be Speaker Boehner. Mm-hmm. What do you see from him in terms of his ability to talk to these independent voters and work with Democrats? He said the other night on 60 Minutes that he doesn't like the term compromise.
Look, John Boehner is an adult. He's an excellent choice for Speaker. I think he's going to be a good Speaker. At the end of the day, of course, he has to report back to a caucus, which is very, very conservative. So he's always balancing, trying to move ahead for the public at large, having to move ahead with permission from his caucus. Pelosi has the same problems in her caucus, which is now much more liberal. But I think Boehner is a good choice for the Republicans at this point because he was there in the Gingrich area. He saw what worked and what didn't work. But it takes two to tango, or in some cases three to tango, with the Senate, the House, and the President.
What has to change in your mind to start ushering in a new era of partisan cooperation? Do you need changes in the nominating process fundamentally to make it happen? Because it doesn't seem like there's much movement in the direction of working across party lines. You see now it's not just the Tea Party on the right. You have the MoveOn.org and company attacking this tax deal that the Democrats in the White House just cut with Republicans.
Yeah. First of all, on the tax deal, what's not to like if you're a voter, except for what it does to the deficit? And nobody cares about that until, the airplane hits the mountain. At that point, everybody's saying, gee, what happened? What's happened to our bonds? How are we going to pay this off? But look, both parties at this point through the nomination process are driven right and left. That's just a fact of the matter. Now, in my own state of Virginia, they've moved away from the caucus to primaries this year. I think these things go in waves. The biggest thing going right now is that the government, both parties, organized politician, political leadership, has not given much good news to American voters in a decade. From 9/11 through two wars, Katrina, to the economic crisis, the fact that wages stay the same. So it is ripe for, and I think that's given rise to the Tea Party. I think it's ripe for people to organize around the center who aren't comfortable with both parties or who just want to see something done constructively and not just watch people giving speeches to each other.
Congressman Davis, we just have like 10 seconds here. 2012, will we see you running again, maybe for the Senate?
Well, I doubt it. I mean, I think my political days are probably over. It's nice to have left Congress undefeated and unindicted. You like to keep it that
way. The rarest of distinctions, indeed. Tom Davis, former Congressman Republican. The new group is No Labels. They're launching today, and we're going to hear a lot about this group in the weeks and months to come. Thanks so much.